to face a setback can be pretty frustrating. And I can definitely understand that. Because it seems like you are the only one who faces these setbacks. And sometimes you feel very lonely doing that. And with that being said, it's not only that you feel lonely, it's also that you sometimes feel like it's not going forward anymore. And this can be a phase in your life where it seems pretty frustrating. I can totally understand that. But it's very important to understand that these setbacks are pretty important. And they are not only pretty important, they are also necessary for success. For any kind of success, they are absolutely necessary. And I will tell you why, and I will tell you what you can learn and how you can grow from your latest setback. Because you probably watch this video because you had a setback very lately in your life, which can be very, very hard, and I can understand that. But it will make you grow in the future, and I will help you with that. Because, as I said, sometimes it can feel very lonely to have a setback, but I can tell you that everyone fails sometimes, or everyone has something bad happening in his life. And when I had my last little setback, I felt very lonely because I thought the life of my friends, for example, or the people I had around me, was just going perfect. And just a few days, few weeks later, very occasionally, I talked to one of my good friends, and he talked with me about something that was going on in his life, and I was very confused because his life was not going perfect as well. And we talked about it, and it just gave me a little relief that I am not alone. And everybody fails, but not everybody is man enough to admit it. And this can seem very frustrating if you compare yourself so much to other people who seem to have no bad things happening at all. But you need to remind yourself that everybody is facing these kind of things, and that they are going through it as well, and they manage to heal from it, so will you. And it's also about the thing that you will learn from these mistakes, or maybe it was not your fault, but it was something bad happening to you. No matter what it was, you can and you will learn from it. And this is the most key aspect to this whole fear of negative things happening in your life, is that you will always learn something from it. You will always be able to turn the situation into something better in the future. Maybe not in the near future, maybe not in the next few days or few weeks, but definitely in the next month and years. And if you remind yourself of that every time you feel like a setback is catching you and you will not comprehend that, remind yourself of that and be aware that you will learn so much from it and that it will make you grow. Because this is what helps me very often. To talk about it with somebody and then outgrow myself from the previous standard I had. Because a setback doesn't mean that it was just for nothing, that you maybe did all the hard work for a marathon and then you failed the marathon and didn't finish the race. This did not mean that all the training you did before was for nothing. The training you did before was very, very meaningful. It was very, very good. And this is not just about marathon training. You can you can comprehend this on every situation in your life. It was not for nothing, and you learned so much in this process. For example, when we still take the example of the marathon training, you trained so hard for this race and failed it. And the most important thing you learned was that you maybe are not at that point to finish a marathon right now, or maybe some other things that didn't work out that much on this day. Maybe you were a bit ill. Maybe you were too excited and couldn't deal with the stress. Maybe you had a little illness. It could have so many aspects which were affecting you on that day. And this setback will just make you grow from it when you think about it. And the thing you should take from these kind of setbacks is that you improve your training and make it better the next time. Because that marathon was not the last marathon you will be able to run. There will be many, many other marathons where you can still sign up for, and where you can still make a race, and where you can still finish a marathon. And this just shows that all the work you put in before was not meaningless. And this is where many, many people have the fear that they work so hard for such a long time and invest so much in this very particular goal and then fail, and then everything is over. But it's not that black and white. It's always like a gray zone. And if you fail, you tend to be more to the black direction, but you also can learn so much from it that you can improve in the next time. For example, me building this Minecraft house looks terrible, to be honest. I'm not very happy with it, but I can do it better next time. I can do it so much better next time, but only because I tried this and failed this. Same, for example, with the marathon. You didn't need to fail the marathon, but maybe it was helpful in the process for you also realizing that you are not at the point of finishing a marathon. Because if you never fail, you have also probably never tried. And to fail a marathon is so much more incredible than not trying to finish a marathon you couldn't ever imagine. And I also have more respect to the people who are not finishing a marathon, but at least tried to do so, than I am to the people who never tried. And this is because they never tried to push their limits. Maybe at that day your limit was not the marathon, and it was way before. But you tried to push it, you failed, and the next time you can't push it again, and maybe the boundary is not the marathon anymore, and you can't finish it. But you can only know if you try. And these setbacks also make you resilient. Because if you imagine a world where you never fail, where you never ever have any kind of setback, what world would that be? Do you think you would grow in any particular way? In anything? I don't think so. I think you need to fail. I think you need Minecraft houses that don't really look very good to build the next ones which look better. Because you learn from it. You see the roof which looks not good, the block contrast from the from the logs and the planks is not very, very fine, and you learn for the next things you want to build. And sometimes all you need is just a new approach, because maybe it's not the goal which is the problem, the marathon you want to run, but maybe the strategy. Maybe you failed because your training was too intense. You trained the 2 weeks before the most intense, and you didn't give your body enough time to regenerate. And then you go into the race very fatigued and not at your peak energy. And maybe you should have a week between your intense training and the marathon where you put the intensity a bit down. And after that week, you can go into the marathon with your peak energy. And maybe you can finish it then. And with that new approach, all the work you've done before was very, very valuable again. And it was definitely not just for nothing. And even if the first reflex is to give up, which happens very, very often, and I know for a fact that people who try a marathon, very, very often, when they fail at the first marathon they try, very, very often they never try a second one. And I think this is very sad, because this only shows what I tried to tell you. The first reflex is to give up. But you learn so much in the first try to do the marathon. Why should you give up? The chance to finish it at the second attempt so much higher as when you try it the first time. Why should you not try it? Why are you afraid of these setbacks? Because even if you have them, it's actually not even that bad, as you can see. Not finishing a marathon isn't that bad. Maybe if you have a cold call to try to get a new client for your business, and the client is shouting at you because he's very angry, this is also kind of a setback. But was it that bad? Is this a reason enough to give up? I don't think so. I don't think so, also because I think that time heals wounds very good. And if you have a setback, time is very good in healing them. Because sometimes they can be very scary, and sometimes they can hurt you very much. Because a setback does not always mean a marathon you didn't finish, or a potential client which doesn't want to work with you. A setback can also mean sometimes that you maybe lose a person who was very loved by you, or a person very close to you. And these setbacks are hard, I can understand that. But time will also help you with that as well. And I know. Because, like, every time when you lose somebody, it will be hard, but everyone will lose somebody at some point in his life. And that is what life is about. You will lose your grandmother, your grandfather, your mom and your dad at some point in life. But you should look at these kind of setbacks also as something you want to learn from it. Because your mom and your dad, for example, they taught you so many great and important things in life. You should remember them in a good heart and in a good place. And time will make these things easier. And these setbacks can often give you also just a kind of a new direction. And sometimes you need a new direction in life to grow from it. Because we always say, yeah, you can grow from setbacks and you can learn from them. And that is right. That is right. But this is also just right if you use it right. Because if we stay at the example of a setback where you are responsible for it. You will only learn from it if you do things a bit different the next time you try it. And you need these new directions you see from these situations to grow from it. Because this is very important, that you try and do something different every time, and to try and do something different what you learn from other very important people in your life. If your mom and your dad taught you something, try to implement it. Try it, implement it, and see if this works for you. And if it does, very good. You learned something and your parents might be proud of you. And if not, the world goes on and you will as well. But you need to try and learn something from your setbacks, but you only will if you find a new direction after these setbacks. And this does not need to mean that you need to try something completely different. If you fail your first marathon, I wouldn't recommend you to immediately try and go skydiving to try to reach the skydiving world championship. This is a bit delusional. But if you fail your first marathon, okay, maybe try a half marathon the next time. And if you finish that and have the success in the half marathon, it will boost your confidence. The setback give you a new opportunity. You took it, you learned from it, and that gave you energy, that gave you discipline and motivation for the next challenges in your life. You improved your training over time, and the second marathon you tried was successful. And this is what you can learn from setbacks. I hope you learned something from this video. I could give you a new sight on some different things. And if so, please consider subscribing, like the video, leave a comment what I should talk about in the next videos, and I hope to see you soon.